model that you guys have and are bringing to bear, to see how those two could dovetail properly, so that I still get, basically what I want before I got to Miami, and make sure that it kind of sings well with what you guys were talking about.
Perfect. That sounds great. And any areas you think that would help in the discussions that would actually give you sort of some further insights to accelerate, or if there is any sort of inertia, break out of any inertia, or give you a real head start?
Well, it's interesting. After being there, I think one of the big things I'd like to kind of try to focus a little bit on while I do the strategies that we just talked about is to see what can be done along the way, if anything, for, basically, cash events, if you will, exit events. Without being too unfocused, I'd certainly like to kind of have some small wins along the way before the large win at the end of the day. Yeah,
I'm with you. Yeah, it's amazing if you start getting those small wins under your belt. They grow. They're really. It's like subconsciously or very consciously actually really gives you a sense that, hey, this is really possible. I can do the deals. We all know you can acquire businesses, but can the strategies that Jeremy talks about, in the Harbour Club type strategies and others similar like that, actually do the job? And I think it's better. It's no better way to actually experience that yourself. Sure.
Craig.
Exactly.
Hi, mate.
Craig, hi, how you doing?
Hi,
Craig.
Hi, Alert.
Craig, I think we're having a bit of trouble. A lot of people can't get into the into this call. They're getting blocked.
Right. Okay.
I've got George is trying to get in. It's saying that he needs to be let in. Have you got?
No, I've just done that. I didn't notice there was. I should have clicked a button. So just check if there's anybody else that needs to join. I think they should be on. But George, you say? Let's have a look. Hi, George. Sorry about that, buddy. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm not as proficient as I thought I might have been on this. So yeah, right. Admit Mark as well. I have to keep an eye on that. I'll have to check. There must be a setting here that I've missed. That
I'd probably take that off.
Yeah. If we can do that, if it's possible. If you can do that, if you pause a second whilst I'm doing that, guys, we'll continue with the conversation. In fact, no. Let's. Obviously, I just spoke about. We just had Alex there. Let's continue. I'm going down on this as I go. So, George, do you want to do a quick introduction as you're at the top of my list, and then I will continue to check this issue whilst you're talking.
I'm in New York. I typically help companies, B2B companies mostly, grow. So whether it's doing turnarounds or it's just helping them build sales teams and sales forces, I take the sales and marketing, build systems, and scale their team, their business to grow.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Shall I keep going, Craig? If you want to have a look at that.
I'm doing that. Watching you. Keep going.
Okay. Thanks, George. I'll tell you what, I'll do a quick introduction to me. My name's Ollie Sutton. I am in IT. I'm a UX designer. I've been working in finance for the last 20 years. I've spent a lot of my time on the trading floor designing software for businesses. I've worked for all the top financial institutions, and I'm verging on an exit, getting out of contracting and starting to purchase businesses. I've owned my own business, and it was quite a lot of hard work. And I'm looking now to purchase a business as opposed to build one. So we have a group, George and I meet up with a couple of other colleagues once a week, and we look at purchasing businesses in the US. Although two of us are based here in the UK, I'll be looking to come out to the US next year. And we have a number of deals in our pipeline. We haven't quite closed one yet, but we're very close on quite a few different deals. and very excited by that. I also run, and I'll be looking to help Craig to sort of co-host this call. Before Craig, I was running the USA Mastermind call. So if anyone's interested, go back. I'm sure that you'll find some videos quite useful.
Awesome.
How are you getting on, Craig?
So I'll keep an eye on it. I think we have to do it from before the meeting's actually started or when you schedule it. So I think I've accepted everybody that's waiting in the waiting room.
Okay. Who's next? Who'd be Jamie? I can see you there. How you doing, buddy? Have you given us your intro?
Can you hear me there?
We can see you now. Yeah. Hi. How you
Can you hear
doing?
me now? Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. You've made the move.
No, not there. Not quite.
Still in the UK.
So, Jamie Levy, I am backwards and forwards to the US every 2 weeks at the moment. I did the Harbour Club quite a while ago, probably a year and a half ago now. I've spoken to some of you here. I have a business. I have 2 businesses in the UK now. One in IT telecoms and one in food. Delightful. And I am now focused on the US and stopped looking at the UK. I guess the big one I want to try and understand or get my head around is free cash flow financing. That's one I want to try and get my head around. So whoever is the experts on that one, I'd like to get my head around it. In terms of sectors, I will be moving in July to Miami, and I'm looking specifically at the moment at home moving and automation businesses and high-end boat maintenance services and high-end, high-value-add businesses. So those are sectors I'm targeting at the moment, and we'll be moving forwards with those. So any help, graciously appreciated.
Awesome. Fantastic. Have you done a deal yet, Jamie? How's that?
Yep, I've got two businesses. So I've got a food business, and I've got an IT business in Scotland, of all delightful places.
Awesome. Was that with the group you've got here in London?
No, it was just me.
Nice one.
So yeah, so those are on the way. Well, those are running now, and I'm looking. I'm not focusing in the UK anymore. I'm only looking in the US for more businesses now. So on the basis that I'll be making a permanent move in July. So actually, yesterday booked the flight, ready to go to the US and not come back.
Fantastic. Well, maybe we could dive into those a bit deeper another time.
Yep. Fine.
Craig, who have we not?
Well, let's just go work from the top of the list. So, Lana? No?
Yes.
Hi, Lana.
Hi.
Hi. So, quick introductions. I don't know whether you joined before we asked what we'd like everybody to do. A quick introduction. Where they're from, when they attended the Harbour Club, if there's a particular sector you're interested in, and also if there's particular areas you think would be useful to cover on the mastermind group here, just to help you and areas perhaps you feel that you have a particular interest in understanding more to help you accelerate your success.
Okay. Well, hi. My name is Lana. My background is in IT. I did technology management in both Wall Street and media companies. I retired from that quite a few years ago, and now I'm just a full-time investor in just traditional investments, real estate and stock market and whatnot. But I find that quite boring, actually, and also unstable, and the returns are not as high as I like them to be. So I just joined the Harbour Club in March this month in Miami. I'm still a little bit overwhelmed and still reading, and I'm still trying to learn and figure out what exactly that I want to do with it. So can't really tell you what sector or what area. The area is probably going to be out in the west between Las Vegas and Phoenix area, because that's where I am right now physically. That may change in the future, but I think this is where I'm going to start. As far as sectors go, probably IT to start with, just because I'm more comfortable with it. But we'll see. I'm still studying.
Fantastic. Well,
Great. Everyone.
Alex, so we're up to Ali now, I think. Ali, can you hear me?
You have to unmute your microphone if you're waiting.
You guys can hear me now?
Wow.
Okay. That is quite a microphone.
Yeah. It's I do podcasting and I have to use it. So
fantastic.
Well, essentially, like I came to the Harbor Club in Miami. So just recently, a couple of weeks ago, met quite a few interesting people. And objectively, my aim is, well, at the moment, my career essentially is working with institutional funds and family offices. So the idea of acquiring and selling companies, it was always something that was intriguing to me. The only difference here is now you have a lot more, I guess, resourcefulness to be able to go in and try to leverage as much as you can without really putting any money in yourself. And then, of course, some of these existing families already have a lot of businesses that are pretty much deadbeat. They give up on it. There's no hope. My objective really is to start small, like as Craig said, just get those small wins and eventually transition with a track record to show these families, look, we're going to revive and resuscitate the businesses that are dead. Allow me to show you what I can do and basically, work through that structure. But I guess my biggest excitement is the financial engineering component, right? Because that's really the fun part. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm also looking for joint ventures with any Harbor Clubbers here. If you guys have businesses you want to sell, quietly, or you want to give it off to a family office, keep in mind, family offices came across their wealth through businesses, and a lot of liquidity events were created through that. So they have the same values as those business owners, right? So they play well together, and they definitely don't like the whole Wall Street investment banking, as much as they used to back in the day. So there's a lot of synergies that can be created from that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So, Oliver, that's you. So I think we're now to Brett. Should be unmuted now, Brett, if you want to do a quick intro, if you're able to. Okay, probably not. So we'll come back to you, Brett, if you're having problems with your mic, possibly. So, Eric. No, Eric, can you hear us?
You're gonna have to unmute your mic, Eric. If you can see in the top picture, you've got to click on the microphone.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Eric. We will loop back round. So let's go for Jeff.
This is Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
Is that you, Jeff? Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
My name's Jeff Liddell. I've got a facility services business in Minneapolis, and I'm looking to bolt on similar companies. I do floor finishing in hospitals, colleges and universities, government facilities. So I have a meeting tomorrow actually with a competitor that I'm talking about acquiring. If there's an area of interest, I also have sort of an inquiry through a broker for a carpet cleaning company that I think would be a fit. And so I'm not just sure how to work through a broker. I'd like to understand how you make that work. How does the broker get paid if there's no money exchanged?
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So Brett's mic's broken, so I think he's going to listen in, but we'll grab you next time, Brett. You're not going to get away. we'll get you to speak soon. So Eric, how about you? Can we look back around quickly, see if Eric can speak if his mic's working?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, Eric. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right. I had to smarter than the computer here. Anyways, Eric Logan here. I actually attended the Harbor Club about 3 weeks ago now. 2 weeks ago. Great experience, but not specifically. I don't have a sector I'm looking for right now. I'm in area-wise though. I'm actually between Dallas, Texas, and Denver, Colorado. I'm down back and forth between the two. So in those geographically, that's the areas I'm looking for. But I've been looking in more the construction field, different things in the construction field, and possibly, maybe rolling some of those up together if I could. That's kind of a thought. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Sounds like a
Thank
plan.
So that was George, you've had, Jim, you've had. So Jim Wells.
Hey there, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Can, Jim. Hi.
Hi there. I attended the Harbor Club in Miami. It was an excellent event. Loved every minute of it. Probably the only conference I can say that I've actually enjoyed hours and hours of presentation. Over a weekend, no less, but it was great. I've been in online advertising technology for about 20 years as a senior exec entrepreneur. More recently, the last 4 or 5 years has been helping to fix broken tech companies for a private equity firm by the name of Regent Equity in LA. And so I attended Harbor Club to learn more about not just how to fix the companies, which I do, I think, already today in terms of financial engineering, but how to do the deals in the first place. And with ad tech in particular, there's a tremendous amount of consolidation going on and a lot of cast-off businesses that have been VC funded and just can't seem to either get acquired or even get their C or D round. And so their investors are looking for a soft exit, and it's, I think, a perfect time for putting it all together. So that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you. I've had Lana. Now I've got Riley. I'm not sure if you've got your first name.
Yeah, my name's Lane Riley.
Lenny, hi.
And went to Miami this month. Left Miami, went on vacation. Did a lot of reading on vacation, so that was good. I own a HVAC company in North Carolina. Probably looking to do something in that avenue as far as, service businesses, whether it be, I'm looking at another one right now as a cleaning company, but other things possibly for roll-ups. And I was kind of interested in, I know in the class we went over the cash flow strategies, not really in depth of how those strategies work. So I would like some more information on those, and then how you actually put together a company to do loans to somebody when you sell something.
So you said the loan, so the loan vehicle to
yes.
so that so they can buy you out. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just would know. I mean, as far as I don't know exactly how to pursue that.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. It's really helpful stuff. So in future sessions, we'll make sure we get we'll get particular focus areas on these. I think that's my suggestion, and we can sort of cover them off in like the deep dive that I think you're asking for there. Right. As we're going on. Fantastic. Okay. Was there anything else you want to run through, Lenny?
I guess my strength, I've bought 3 businesses now, not prior to the Harbor Club. So definitely looking forward to adding some more with less money up front for sure.
Yeah.
And any joint ventures open to. Anybody needs any help in the service business, I'm pretty good at the service business part of it.
Fantastic. Welcome as well. So down to Mark now. Right. So, Mark, can you hear us? So, Mark, we'll come back to you. Not Michael. I saw you earlier. I think you were there. I'll mute you.
Hey guys, Mike Howard. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I have a background in advertising. I just sold my share of an ad agency that worked with mobile apps last year, and started that company. I definitely, I think I learned a lot, but I definitely want to start buying instead of starting companies. Right. So obviously that's why I'm here. So anyway, I'm focusing on right now business to business services and also home services. But to tell you the truth, I really just want to get in front of as many deals as I can at this point and learn as much as I can and talk to as many people as I can. So that's really, that's where I am as of today. And I expect that, as this process goes on, that things might change as far as, what I want to focus on. But that's where I am starting out.
Yeah, great. And I think it's a great attitude as well, just get in front of as many people as you can, get the conversations going. It's the best way, break out of any, some people have fear, don't they, for whatever reason, but, just get in there and have those conversations.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Monty.
Hey guys. So I was down in Miami for the Miami event. I have 11 years of experience in starting and growing digital businesses. That includes SaaS, content, media, info, basically anything, any kind of digital business. And about 5 months ago, I connected with Jeremy. And we decided to work together. So I do sales and marketing for Harbor Club USA. I launched the USA website and the marketing for that, and we'll continue to try and grow our US network, and hopefully get this mastermind growing, 10x to what it is now. And I specialize in digital businesses. I'm currently talking with what is hopefully going to be my first acquisition. They are a Forex education company, and they are having some partnership misalignments. And so I'm kind of refereeing that, and Jeremy's helping me along the way. And so anything digital, let me know. I'm looking to acquire, merge, and can help with any kind of exit, and also prepare for that through growth, and that's some through a strategic marketing system that I developed, and so anything digital related, I'm all ears.
Awesome, well done. So I think we've probably, a lot of people on the call have really got you to thank for being here today. I think with your marketing expertise, so I think probably it's testament to your expertise. Fantastic. So that's Monty. Nancy. Can you hear us, Nancy? You may be on mute, Nancy, but if you can't speak, we can move on and perhaps loop back round to you. Okay, and let's move on then. So, Omar?
Hey guys, Omar Mirza here. Did the course a couple of weeks ago. I've worked in restructuring my whole career, both in law and investment banking. Closed maybe just over 80 transactions. So the goal for me is to transition from working like a dog for someone else and making a lot of money for them to make money for myself and build my own empire. And yeah, I've got a lot of experience and happy to help people. Obviously pursuing my own deals. I'm still figuring out where my focus areas are, but any business that's EBITDA margin of 30% or above will be in the focus area. And I also own a loan company that does financing asset-based loans and cash flow-based loans in the US. So we're looking to build that up. And yeah, that's pretty much me. Happy to have a chat with anyone. If anyone wants to bounce any ideas, needs advice, wants to just pick my brains, happy to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you. So let me just check. Nancy, are you available? Not so. I'll just look back again. Mark, we missed you earlier. Are you able to join us to speak? No. Okay, so let's go down to Scott at work. Hi, Scott.
Can you all hear me okay?
I can, certainly, yeah. Hi.
Hi, Scott in Colorado Springs. My area of expertise, or the area that I'm looking to roll up some businesses in, would be the residential property management business. And then I'm also open to other areas. The meeting really kind of opened my eyes on what's available out there. I like daycare centers, dry cleaners, a bunch of that stuff that provides sort of continuity revenue. But that's kind of where I am.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then I've got we've got a few dial-ins, so I will not be able to do that. So I'm going to come back to those. And then we've got Aaron. I'm sure he's dialed in on video only at the moment. Casey. On video only, maybe. Then we've got Chris. So let me just do an open call then to anybody who hasn't spoken, who would like to actually just do a quick introduction. No, I think we may have everybody. Unless somebody said anything in the chat. 72. So Casey, you've dialed in 972. Do you want to do a quick introduction? Oh, we've got Nancy. Let's go with Nancy. It's like
I was on my phone calling and nobody could hear me, even while I was unmuted. So I joined from my computer, and now I don't know why that was a problem. I am from Houston, Texas, and I come from the consumer products industry, especially personal care. I know of a lot of opportunities for selling niche brands. I know the companies that are always seeking to acquire. They're Amazon proof because they're already selling through Amazon. The major corporations that are seeking to acquire brands. So I have a lot of interest in that, and then I have experience in different business services. And I'm looking for retiring baby boomers, especially in the area of Galveston County and Harris County, where I am, which is the middle and southern end of Houston.
Wonderful. Cool. Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else? I was saying Casey.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we've got you now. Yep.
This is Casey Pearson. I was at the Miami event. Really excited to be here. Kind of been an interesting couple of weeks since we returned, but did have a phone call today with an oil field service company. Actually, about an hour before I joined this call. Kind of an interesting dynamic, possibility of an acquisition and a roll up with somebody else kind of at the same time. Their hang up is some debt issues. They're producing, they're busy, but they need to grow. They need some equipment. They're making money, but their financials are a mess. Asked the guy for balance sheet, cash flow statement. he didn't even know what I'm talking about. And these guys are running almost $4 million a year. So there's I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Just probably going to need lots of help, Craig.
Yeah.
And anybody else?
Yeah.
Anybody else? But you know, kind of helping with the financials, and I think overcoming the first thing that came to mind was the leaking bucket, where they're wanting cash as an investor, somebody to come in, but from the sounds of it, I don't think they need it. I mean, they're turning, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 a month, and they just, I think, kind of need to get their business in order. So, but anyways, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Cool. Well done. That's a real turnaround after we last spoke. That's good. Cool. So guys, quick. So I know we spent a lot of time, I think, on this particular call, as it's the first one with a lot of people joining, where it's been an opportunity just to say hi to everybody or reconnect with those who are on the call, of those were at Miami and those obviously who weren't and new to you. So it's obviously taking a chunk of the time for that, which I think is useful still. But if I've missed anybody, please shout now. Obviously, we'll get a chance at subsequent meetings if you haven't had a chance to speak, to speak. So I'll just pause there. Anybody else want to introduce themselves?
Hey, Craig, this is Arun. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Aaron. Hi.
I was having trouble with the phone. I am Arun Varanasi, based in San Diego, California. I work for a wireless tech company, being part of both the engineering and the business teams here. And I was at Miami earlier this month for the Harbor Club event. Just looking for, don't have much exposure to the small and medium enterprise space. Was looking for a baseline template to get started and kind of evolve along the way. And with my way. And I think in terms of what I want, the part that's still a little overwhelming and I'm trying to learn is obviously when you're trying to do deals, how you establish your reputation, someone who can actually take on and be successful with it. And the other, of course, is more to do with the laws and regulations that are unique to each state, which I'm super new to. Obviously, I'll have to at least understand the basics on how they work.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thanks, Aaron. That's fantastic. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think we've gone through it. Brett, have we heard from you? I think there's still quite a few people that are muted here.
Right. Brett's going to listen in, he said, because it was Mike. Eric had, George had, Jim had.
Have we heard from Jim?
Yes, we have, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, look, I'm sure there's, if you, in the chat, if you haven't had a chance to speak and we've, skipped over you, obviously we apologise, but if you do pop in the chat, if your mic's working, would like to have a, do an introduction, that's obviously great, we can do that. But I think now I was suggesting, Oliver, we could probably do one of two things. We can either open up to sort of general Q&A, any sort of burning issues. I mean, especially, well, even guys who've been in the doing the Harbour Club for a while, no doubt there, you've got some experience to bring to the table and advice as well as perhaps even questions you may even have yourselves, and hopefully between us we'll be able to sort of shed some light on those. But certainly the guys who are just starting out or just completed the Harbour Club, there's often, I think, areas that cause a little bit of inertia, put it that way, when you're first starting. And so I'm keen to sort of get, for you to sort of put your hands up, metaphorically speaking, to sort of say, are there particular areas you're feeling you're struggling with at the moment? For instance, you mentioned about, establishing rapport. I think, was that Aaron? I think you said that. reputation, establishing reputation, not rapport, am I right? Things like that. Are there any sort of specific questions you'd like us to go through? So help me out here, Oliver, when I'm talking, if we see anything particularly. So we've got Michael's talked about you sending letters out, no response. Any thoughts on top of funnel strategies? Anybody like to answer that? Because I have a thoughts, but I don't want to just sort of be speaking to anybody. Jamie, Oliver, anybody who's been around, George as well. Any thoughts around, nuances around letter writing, perhaps, where no responses yet might be worried about that, and what other strategies could we deploy? Not having a multi-channel strategy.
I think I could speak to that pretty easy. It's really just a matter of getting in front of the people that we want. So just in anything, if letters alone aren't working, then try different ways. What's been working pretty well is LinkedIn and email, cold email. I think the best thing to do is just really stick to one niche and start just going down that path, because when you start having conversations, you tend to have the same conversation again and again and again, dealing with the same problem. So it speaks to the credibility issue, because you could define the problems that they already have and you could speak to it, so it becomes very easy. But in any of these things, whether you're using LinkedIn or using email, the biggest mistake I see people make is they'll send one email or they'll send one message and they won't get a response and they just move on. Whereas people are getting bombarded with everything, so you need to have something, a sequence in place that they're going to reach out 2 or 3 times in the process.
Yeah, so particularly like LinkedIn, is there a particular strategy how you're doing that? Are you using are you using the full sort of basic LinkedIn tools, or are you using
Yeah, there's a couple ways. So if you want to build a machine, you can use Sales Navigator, where it's a paid service, but it really allows you to focus on specific geography. You can search by titles, you can search by keywords, and really kind of build a list. And that you can use that. You can use a free account, which has a lot less as far as functionality. What you could search for. You could search only by like major cities and keywords. You can search for size of the companies. So one of the benefits to Sales Navigator is you could search by the size, the number of employees they have, as opposed to just hitting a company that has 5,000 employees that you're never going to be able to do the deal. Also, when it comes to like LinkedIn, for example, each place is a place online where these people congregate. So whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, all these platforms, they have groups of people. So if Monty, for example, wanted digital marketing agencies, he could literally just join the group, and he has a pool of people in the digital marketing space, and that he could connect with on there and reference a specific group. So almost every industry that you're in is some group of people that you can, part of your connection message to them is, hey, John, you and I are both in this group. I thought it makes sense to connect. The biggest strategy when it comes to LinkedIn is we don't want to use in-mail credits. So we want to use like a paid account comes with a certain number of in-mail credits, but they get expensive if you go on that approach. So what we want to do is we want to connect with these people first, so they become part of your network. Once they're part of your network, you can message them as often as you'd like. So first step is to get them to connect with you. Once they're connected, then take them down a series of messages and reach out to them. And you can use just different variations of Jeremy's letter, message.
Yeah. So obviously you got LinkedIn. I was just thinking, you've got LinkedIn and you're making the connections. So would you also get these other tools you can use, to? I've used a little bit Linked Helper, but I think there's Duck Soup or something like that.
Yeah.
To build.
Yeah, there's another one I'll put in a group too. It's called Lead Connect. Is a pretty decent one. There used to be a good one called JetBuzz that if you didn't use it before, you don't have access to it. I do, because I get grandfathered. And what happens is a lot of these companies, they get in trouble by LinkedIn because you're not supposed to have software. They get sued and then they disappear for a period of time. But they all work pretty much the same. We just want to automate the process. When I first started, I thought I was going to need to build this thing that was going to give us, just so many messages being pumped out, but you really don't, because once you start reaching out to them and telling them that you want to in their business or buy it, you get a very high response rate. You get people that want to have conversations. Now, if you're not using Sales Navigator, so this is LinkedIn, obviously, strategy, but if you're not using Sales Navigator, what happens is you're having conversations with people that everyone wants to talk to you when you have money, and a lot of times they think you want to give them money, and a lot of times you're dealing with people that it's not a good fit for the deal, but they're going to waste an hour of your time having this first message.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I made sure to filter out companies that have less than 11 employees as an example, because I found a lot of people that they didn't hit the $500,000 mark, and they all wanted, to have a conversation. Also, email is just as good. So, there's no one strategy that's going to work the best. I would use a combination of different ones. When people use cold email a lot, then that got saturated. Then people went to LinkedIn, then that got too much. And then it's going to make the direct mail letters work all over again, because not everybody's paying money for postage. So not one of these things I would just use a combination of all of them. But I think the key part is to build a good list. Here in the US, we don't have access to the financial data that they have in the UK. So we don't know who's stressed. It's more expensive for us to pull credit reports on all these businesses. So a good approach is just to kind of compile a list of companies that you think fit your criteria, and then just start reaching out to the CEO, the owner.
Gotcha.
George, did you want to talk about the deal that you got, the new deal that we're working on? I think there's a big lesson to be learned, I think, with all of this is just telling your peers, telling your network that you're looking for deals, right? George, you found a deal from a guy that was selling you security services, and
we got a bunch of deals that way too. So people use cold email to try to sell services, and my immediate response is something like, thanks, although I don't have interest in that, I don't have a need for that, but I do have interest in your industry. I'm looking to buy, invest in, blah blah blah. And we've had that opportunity 3 or 4 times, and every single person responded to that and want to have a meeting. So that's another good one. The only downside to that is that they don't, you can't predict when you're going to get a message, but if it's in an industry that you like,
Hello, beautiful.
It works really well.
I'm good. How are you?
It seems, and to me, finding the deals is relatively easy. The deals come to you once you have an element of deal flow in place. There really is, the labor-intensive work is just filtering out those deals. So taking away the first, second, third layer until you really get it, under the bonnet to find out, what
they
these
will
businesses
usually
really
convert
like,
it from dollars to pounds.
So it's a bit of background noise, but I think
Is it something where you talk to somebody, or you can fill something out on an email, or?
I think it's Scott.
Scott, do you want to put, if you want to pause your mic?
We're going to hear your credit card number, Scott.
Well, they're 7 hours ahead of us. So it's almost 10 o'clock at night there.
So I've just muted everybody. Let me just open up. Either George or Ollie, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so no, I was just saying, I think as we group up on this, but we can pass over some of the methods. For those people that have just joined, it is quite daunting. I think you've learned so much on the course. What I can really say is by coming on this mastermind and teaming up with other people who have done some deals is the best way to really to sort of get your foot in the door and to start actually putting some of the things you've learned into practice. So I really would recommend coming to this call and pushing things forward that way.
So one of the things when you get the volume going through is to systemize. I think that's what George was saying. And so that's why George, I put in a questionnaire for them to be. Historically, it was just a form I'd send them to, but now it's this value builder questionnaire. Just as something to help me. I love using some of the Jeremyisms. It just makes sure the juice is worth the squeeze. They have got we're not got they're the right size, they fit the right criteria I'm looking for, and that really does help. But if you do it in such a way you're capturing some basic information, you can start having a really good conversation with them as well on that, not just the financial, but trying to get into some of the reasons why, frankly, why they're selling, what some of their problems are. And so I explicitly often ask about, what are the top, 3 problems they're currently tackling within the business that's causing them to have sleepless nights, that sort of thing. And that's quite useful. And I suppose that's kind of a bit of a segue into, I think, Jeff, you raised the question about if a broker's involved and with a potential seller, what is the best approach? And so if you've got a broker involved and you invariably that's either, sometimes it happens when you've approached or you've heard about a business for sale and you said, I've got a broker, and you have to go by the broker, or you yourself have actually identified the business as an opportunity, but it's being listed on a broker's site or on one of the consolidation ones like BizBuySell, etc. And yes, you've got to deal with a broker. Now, we all have our views about brokers. I think I've spoken to a few people this last couple of weeks about this, and I share all the same sentiments like Jeremy has, and we all have about working with brokers. In fact, there was one broker, and I can't remember anybody on the call. I can't remember the name. Your name was actually a broker at Miami. So the broker was getting some bad brokers, and we were getting some bad press, and of course there was one in the room. But they took it very light, well-meaning way. So with brokers, my approach is it's just another person that you have to actually build rapport with. Very important that you just understand, we're trying to solve problems, and the problem's not just about a problem with a business seller that you're trying to solve. In other words, get to the emotional reason why they're looking to sell and the problems that you can solve, and then building a deal structure that delivers a solution to those problems. Likewise with a broker, whilst they may cause problems for us when we're trying to negotiate, we often create it's another gatekeeper we have to speak to. The first thing to do is really just build that rapport with them, get to understand the broker, get them to understand who you are, why you're actually interested in this business, and why you're not just simply looking at a single business. You actually got a strategy behind what you're doing, and actually, it's this is not say just a one-time kind of gig you're doing or one-time acquisition. It's something that you're investing heavily in. I often use that phrase, but it doesn't necessarily mean cash. It obviously can mean time and effort and knowledge as well. So having said that, the broker often is involved. And if you haven't built up rapport, you'll start to get certain amount of pushback where you'll start to have challenges with the broker. Initially, when you approach them, they'll ask for an NDA, which is fine. Then they'll ask for a net worth statement, which isn't so fine, I think, for any of us. And so I always push back on that. I always simply say that I'm working with, my funding comes from a combination of my own capital and those of my partners and financial partners. But I also include with that either a statement or even a follow-up email. I can preempt that often when I send in a request, or when they ask for this information, I'll send in a short summary about what I'm doing, what sector I'm interested in, a little bio about myself, and then that same statement in there. Normally that's enough. That's really enough to back them off, and they'll be happy. You may need to have that conversation with the broker to talk them through a little bit about yourself, and that's just being really clear in what your strategy is, what you're seeking to achieve, who you are, and what sector you're looking at, and being very. And I think it's really important at this point that you deal with when you first start this. I think there's often you guys will have a sense where you're sometimes, not everybody, because we heard from the sort of introductions that quite a number of you are used to M&A, or used to maybe even a strong sales background, very confident, or have been in acquisitions of some sort, or been in business and you've acquired other companies, that sort of thing. So it's probably not too much of a switch in terms of kind of restate who you are, or repurpose who you are, in terms of you're now a business investor. And I think the easiest part to do on that is not when you position yourself with the broker. Don't go telling them unless this is absolutely true. Like was it? I think it was Amar. Was it? I was trying to remember who said it. In terms of the number of deals that you've done in M&A space, to actually know that you've actually closed many deals. If you haven't done that, don't say that. Simply just position yourself as saying that I've done really well in my professional life so far. I'm now actually looking to do something different and investing. I'll take the value that I've got in the gains and the information and the knowledge I have, experience I have, and actually apply those into businesses that I'm now acquiring or rolling up. And just be blatantly clear and truthful about that. If you haven't got that long-term track record, because it's very easy for anybody to unravel you. If you say that and you believe you've positioned yourself properly, if you don't believe that yourself, often then the cracks appear, and it doesn't take much for someone to, if they're in the mind to sort of interrogate you further, and then you start, umming and ahhing, second-guessing yourself, not getting.
Craig,
yeah.
That brings up a point. A lot of time on some of these other groups that I was part of, I see one of the most common things is people say, "Oh, how do I, what do I do? Proof of funds or the gatekeeper is asking for this." And I think what you just said really speaks to a lot, because if you're not positioning yourself as somebody that they feel confident that you're qualified, if the broker is questioning that, trust me, the business owner is going to be questioning that. You're not positioning yourself the right way. They're not going to feel comfortable handing you over their business. So the broker wants to get paid. He doesn't want to waste the time of the business owner. But that's a good indication that whatever your positioning is, it's not solid enough to have the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to, obviously, you can't. I think you have to sort of combine the two. Be honest and transparent about or congruent with who you are and where you are in a particular journey now. But at the same time, they'll ask that question. You just said, well, how many deals have you done? Or how much experience have you got in that sector? And you can obviously maybe talk to that particular sector, but you can equally, I basically, when I first started, obviously I worked with Jeremy very closely. Now you can say that I'm part of a group of, where we've acquired and exited X, number of companies. So if you're working with me, if you're joint venturing with someone who's done a number of closes and exited them, clearly you can reference that. It's all about how you position. Absolutely, how you position yourself, and be very clear that you are someone that's confident and actually can is a good candidate. In other words, the broker is happy to put forward, because they do sometimes act as that barrier. I've only had one particular occasion over here, one other back in the UK, where a broker has been just absolutely arrogant and insisted on so many loops and hoops to jump through, including literally wanting to have the money put in escrow to before he'd even let me speak to the owner, and I've just told him flat out no. And the beauty of it is if you have a pipeline built up, George, you know this, when you've got a pipeline built up and those have got them built up, you have that confidence to be able to say no to this, and this is how I want it needs to be. This is how I do business. And if you're interested in to doing a service to your client as a broker, let's jump on the call. But of course, if you're doing it in a way that's that sounds a little bit sort of arrogant maybe, or abrasive to the broker, then you can start to get, it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to do it that way, put it that way. You can actually spend time, as I said earlier, building a rapport with the broker, talking to them and saying, look, I get, you've got loads of business owners coming to you with unreasonable expectations. That's often the problem. We find that as well. How's things going? And you just build that rapport as you would do with a seller. And then I found that I do that. They're the ones who bring me the deals. They're the ones who are actually having that word in the ear of the seller, saying, you ought to speak to Craig. He seems a pretty decent guy. He's working some interesting things. I think you should have a chat. And then often what you then find is that if you're an indication that you still need to do more rapport, or it depends on the broker's approach. Some brokers like to keep a very, very tight control over the conversation where everything has to go through them. And I can promise you, every time that happens, and I still fall into the trap from time to time, where I kind of allow that to happen, especially when you get to a point, it's okay a little bit at the beginning, but when you get to a point where you're actually working on, you spent time with the seller, crafting, jointly curating the deal structure, exactly what the deal is going to be and the benefits and why we're doing it this way, focusing on solving their problems. And then the broker insists it comes through them, and then the broker then has his attempt to explain it to the seller because he thinks he's the best guy to explain all the bids coming forward. I've not had a deal that's gone through when the broker's done that. They've screwed this up. They haven't understood the actual reasons why the deal is structured in that way, and often the broker is actually opposed to it in the sense that because they're actually looking for fees and they don't necessarily understand how they are going to be looked after out of the deal structure. If of course that's happened, that's obviously a little bit of weakness where we'd have to pick up on that particular detail and ensure that, as part of the agreement, you are looking after the broker as well, or not necessarily yourself because it's not your contractual responsibility, but it is a responsibility between it for the deal that actually the broker gets paid recompense for his work. So yeah, I would say how you deal with the broker is basically rapport with him, don't oversell yourself in terms of making statements that is simply not true and you can't back up, and actually position yourself very congruently that you are working with, or you have got that history that you to provide that so you get the open door to the seller, and then at the same time ensure and insist that the broker steps sideways for when you have the negotiation. And if you're building that rapport with both the broker and also the seller, that's exactly what will happen. They'll be happy for you to do that.
Craig, I'll just add to that.
Please.
I'll just add to that. I think brokers are always out to make a buck. So if if they do present a deal and you are able to get them aside and work directly with a company owner, and then the deal does close, make sure you give them something, because they're going to be pretty pissed if they make the introduction and then you don't kind of look after them. So even if you just 25, 50 grand, whatever, it keeps them warm, it keeps that relationship open, the chain of the communication open, and they're probably going to start feeding other deals that they've been shopping for 18 months, 2 years, haven't been able to close, haven't been able to sell, and then they'll just give you those introductions without any obligation or just open those doors. So I think broker channel is interesting, but you can also spin the wheel and speak to all of those brokers, but you have to be consistent and follow up. And I think they get a lot of people kind of one time approaching them, so that one trick pony. So yeah, I think you want to have a small group of brokers that you approach and have that rapport, because if you spread yourself too thin across the top, they're just not going to, it's not going to be a meaningful use of your time.
Yeah.
Good point. You don't want to burn bridges with the brokers, because especially if you're looking in a niche market, you might find that there is a particular broker that owns that space. If you're looking at in a particular area and a particular industry, some brokers will come back. So if you piss them off, you've burned that bridge. So the rapport with the broker is very good. Building that, it's a slightly different rapport, I think, for that on the owner. The owner rapport, I know personally, a good way to create that rapport is by listening. It's like a date. Sit there and just let them talk about their business and be interested. Ask the right questions at the right time. You don't need to come across as an investment banker. You literally just need to come across as someone who knows what they're doing, who's interested in their business, because what you're really looking for is that safe pair of hands, somebody that they sort of bond with as chemistry, and actually that, I think, is stronger than the perceived wealthy investor. They're really looking for someone that they like. People will sell to those people that they that they've got a rapport with.
Yeah.
But that said, a lot of the time you do want to just bypass the broker. Be nice to the broker. It's not them who's going to make the decision. And I think if you can bypass them in a polite manner and start asking questions and calling the owner back, then that's where you get rapport with the right person, and that I think has been useful for us.
So, Ollie, you're saying that when you're speaking with them, you just keep feeding them drinks like a date until they eventually say yes?
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult to put the date jargon in the glass.
That's a strategy we also get on the pen drive that Jeremy's forgotten, isn't it?
I think also we leave the Harbor Club and we think we need 40 different ways to source deals. I think the best thing is just to start having conversations, and we don't have to be this private equity firm out of the gate. We could start with just being a person that wants to invest in a particular type of business. So imagine you had a couple companies in the past, you sold them, or you have all this, you're bored and you have money to invest somewhere. That's the image that you're kind of portraying. So you don't have to be this professional investor. You could just be a person that's interested in the sector, and start having conversations. And then when you complete your first deal, then you could point to that experience on the next deal and more of those.
The more you do, the better you become. If the first time you do it, you're probably a bit too keen. Like a date, that might come across too needy, or you might come across like you don't know what you're doing. But I think the more that you do, the more that you lose the deal heat, they call it. When you really want a deal, you don't really care because you know that there's many deals out there, and you've always got the next one. If the broker's been difficult, then just just say, look, okay, it sounds like you're, very specific on what you're looking for. You walk away, come back to him another time, But yeah, get as many under your belt as possible. Keep that phone call, those calls going. I don't know what the ratios are, but you start at 100. I think you're whittling down. Every time you speak, you need to have big deal flow at the beginning to get those little nuggets.
My experience with the brokers too, the general complaints that I've gotten from the business owners is that the brokers, sign them up and then they're nowhere to be found. And one last week was saying, he was supposed to have all these conversations for me, and he just doesn't. We've had Ollie and I think we had one that the broker tried to get involved in and kind of be like the referee and just interfere in the conversation. And as soon as we just had a conversation away, we said, thanks, Joe, and just kind of like asked him politely in a way to just let us have the conversation. As soon as we were able to have the conversation without the broker jumping in every 2 seconds, that's when the real rapport was able to be built. And then that guy never came back on the conversations again. So, it's business. It's not business to business or business to consumer. It's person to person. It's just a deal between two human beings, and that's it. So brokers don't have to be somebody that gets in the way, but sometimes they can. But but I think one thing just to mention as far as sourcing, what we tend to forget. Jeremy says that we have our first deal in our phone books or in our LinkedIn contacts already, or in our Facebook friends. It's already there. So we don't necessarily need strangers. It's probably better to start with a warmer introduction until you get your sales process down, until you've spit out the right, until you had enough of these conversations where you know what the perfect thing to say is. So in the beginning, you could compensate with just by people that you don't have to be the best salesperson.
Cool. So, Jeff, you got a question here. How can you take care of a broker's fee in the deal structure? Well, I might be on that, but anybody wants to jump in on that one?
Yeah, this is Jim. I'll give you an example of a real situation that we just had a near miss for last week. It was an ad tech business. It was VC funded, went through 3 rounds, $2 million in revenue, but a growth-oriented CEO. They couldn't get a lead for their 3rd round of funding, burned through $25 million for a $2 million business. And so it was perfect for a $1 offer, which is what we made, but we did it through a broker. Again, I guess echoing a lot of what was said, if you build a rapport with the brokers in that particular industry, they'll start to bring you deals because they inevitably have lots and lots of deals that are stale, old, and they just can't do anything with. And they'd much rather see it move and they can claim credit for it rather than, just hold out and let the company die if there's not any offer that makes any sense at all. And so they relayed our offer of $1. We would have won the deal, believe it or not, with one exception. The CEO, I think, was a little bit freaked out, as I learned secondhand, from this new WARN Act, I guess, making directors potentially personally liable in New York State, for example, if severance that has been historically given wasn't given. Of course, what we had to do with a 25-person staff is cut that way down as part of financial engineering. So knowing what would likely happen after a sale, I think he as a director was concerned that it would affect him. And so he went with another $1 offer that also gave a guaranteed severance package to all the employees. So that said, the broker was very open with us, gave us full disclosure on what's happening. And they're already lining up, I think, several other potential deals that they've, again, had struggles with in the open market because they'd love to have a higher win rate. And of course, one thing to consider potentially, if the company is only worth $1, there's no room for any broker fee, and I think it's implied when the offer is made. It's not their decision to sell the company. It's not their company to sell. And so it depends on the structure. Sometimes the seller has engaged in a way that they're going to pay the fee out of the proceeds. So it's not really the buyer's problem. Other times, if you have a buy-side relationship, it's on you. So it depends on the nature of financially of the relationship. That's the first thing to discover. In addition, I think one thing to consider with brokers is if you have any interest in selling that business again after you fixed it, you can agree that to the extent that there's a room for someone to sell it, they can be on the other end and they get a new deal potentially to represent it for you if you're not willing to sell it directly. So lots of ways to cut them in. I think if there's some future value down the road, if there's no value now, there is nothing really to take care of. But again, building the rapport, the relationships, and the deal flow, I think is really, really key.
Hey, Jim, out of curiosity, you made the offer through the broker and not direct?
We did. Now, this is, I work mostly in an industry where there's a board of directors and there are many investors, some with higher preference than others. It's not really a one-person owned business, typically, in ad tech and B2B. And so it's a little harder. I can work with the chairman, for example, but he's typically a VC, among others. He's going to have to check with the board anyway. I can work with the CEO, but he's just one director that's maybe a founder, but doesn't make the decision. So complicated decision making at the end of the day, and rather than sit down with the board and get them all together to present a $1 offer, in this case it made more sense to go right through the broker and the CEO, both of which relayed it to the board, had the discussion, and just opted to go in a slightly different direction.
It's interesting, and I totally agree with that. You can get a lot out of a broker if you do break that rapport. You'll find that the broker sometimes will give away a little bit too much. They'll give you a bit of background knowledge. They'll potentially tell you what the other offers are. So it is definitely worth creating that rapport. I don't know if anyone's heard the Carl Allen strategy. He uses brokers, but he contacts brokers to find deals that have been on their books for over 6 or 12 months, I think it is. And I don't know if anyone knows the way that brokers are paid. Literally, they're literally paid to create the brochure, so they're not actually they don't take a percentage of the deal. They're literally there to sort of make a deal look good. And someone correct me if I'm wrong, but after a certain amount of time, their contract is up. So if you contract a broker that's had a deal on their books for a period of time, I don't know exactly what it is, then they will look to get that deal off their books. So they'll be very keen to work with you to get a deal going.
Yeah, Ollie, in the US, the brokers are remunerated based on a percentage of the sale price. So there may be a marketing budget that they get from the company, and then it depends how big. But generally, on this side of the Atlantic, it's a percentage of the sale price. So it's usually 10%, sometimes 15%, 7%. It's pretty heavy.
And how long is that contract up?
It's independent depending on transaction by transaction, but they call it going stale. So if it's 3 months, it could be 6 months. It depends how confident they are, how hot the market is, and how much the seller is willing to give the lead to the agent. So, I mean, that could be as long as 12 months. It could be as short as 6 months. I mean, it's actually similar to selling a house. You have exclusivity, or you can have co-listing. It's the same thing, but the US is a slightly different wrinkle on this side of the Atlantic. The only other thing I would say, I think Jim's point before about insolvent trading and director liability, there is some protection to directors here, but it is a little tricky. In the UK and Australia, the directors can be personally liable. In the US, they have the zone of insolvency, so there's a few wrinkles there. So just definitely be aware that if they are trading and they're incurring debts and they can't pay them as and when they're due, then there can be liabilities falling back to the director. But the key is to structure something that gives the director the release and gets them off the hook. So maybe by paying severance or putting a bit of cash up front to cover those potential high-risk claims, you're going to get out of that. Or you can run a bankruptcy into a 363 sale and buy the assets out of bankruptcy, a bit like a CVA in the UK. So just something to be aware of. It can get a little legal over in the US with some of the director issues. So just kind of be aware of some of those minefields.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Craig, did you want to go through some of the feedback that you gathered on subjects that that people wanted to have a look at on this call?
Let me just bring that up. One moment. Let me have a look.
How long have we got? We're going, so...
Yeah, we have probably about 10 minutes, but we tend to have a little bit of an open end, but we had 2 hours booked, but obviously I'm not sure how long people can stay on, but it was, I think, a hard close in 2 hours rather than any longer than that.
Choose one of the subjects that we want to talk about next week, maybe, or next call.
Yeah. So, there's a list that I sent over in the meeting request that had a number of areas that being proposed as areas that we could focus on. Some were brought up today, so let me go through those. So, some around financial re-engineering, cash flow strategies is another. How the loan vehicle works. We've covered a little bit about establishing reputation, but there's probably more play around that we could talk about. There were those. And then whole pieces, about mindset. Obviously, there's common things around sourcing. We've touched a bit on that. I think there could be some really useful areas where we could, I thought what George was saying there was very, very helpful about LinkedIn. But also, there's obviously other strategies that can be applied. And I think the key one there that George was saying was having a multi-source sort of sourcing strategy with that. Things like building rapport and meeting framework. How should you actually structure a meeting? And is there a framework you can follow that actually helps you take the seller or take the meeting through a particular sequence, but at the same time having the ability to, I guess, adapt, be adaptable, have that behavioural adaptability based on how the conversation's moving. Drilling into more deal structures, and I think some of these, for the guys who have been recently on the Harbour Club, some of these things will be more relevant now, and other ones will take a little bit longer, to probably be on their radar as such, or be burning questions to deal with. But deal structuring could well be one that comes up soon, as would, of course, reading and analysing financials and such things as the financial re-engineering, perhaps, be it on paper, but also subsequently how to do it in the actual triage or as was mentioned earlier, mentioned in sort of a financial or distress situation. Distressed acquisitions, running through those, how would that actually really work? Closing, how really to affect a close. Building on some of those different strategies. There's certain times where you can close on a deal, like Jeremy talked about. The don't leave until you do a deal type meeting. Obviously, that works in certain circumstances. Other times, it may not be as appropriate. If you're actually trying to If it's not sort of a dire sort of distressed acquisition, I think you can afford to make it a little bit more consultative. But again, on that point, I'm thinking up as I speak, all of these things depend very, very much on the circumstances on the particular day when you're having a meeting. Sometimes, I'm talking to one of the guys, my JD myself, we're talking to a particular company at the moment, and to doctors, and they keep literally saying to, literally in not so many words, but saying that please just rebuy the business. And I'm kind of, on one hand you say, yes, we can do it, and the right thing potentially would be to say, yeah, okay, just here's a one thing to do, a sale and purchase agreement, let's just buy it. But actually, we don't want to buy the business, we want him in the business. So the deal, it's not about buying the business and you walking away. Actually, the value is all in this particular doctor and his IP. So sometimes you just can't, when someone's saying, buy my business, and you see all the motivations, and you would think on one sense, that's the thing that we need to do to get a deal. Actually, think a little bit bigger sometimes, think what actually is the deal I want? What's the problem we're trying to solve from their perspective? And is that problem, once we've solved it as an outcome for us, actually something that we really need or want? So that's quite a nuance and something that's quite important to remember. Deal structures, so covering that. Corporate structures, things like, there's been questions about forming SPVs. I know we've got a few really talented guys on the call here now that know this really, really well, so perhaps that'll be quite an interesting conversation. Post-deal due diligence or extended due diligence, I could talk through some of the strategies I use, but of course other people's experience of due diligence, to what level we should do due diligence, especially if it's just an acquisition, perhaps do a little bit less and figure out what you've got once you've bought the business. And using Jeremy's analogy, if you just then buy it for $1 and then sell the doormat, you're probably $1.50 ahead of yourself. Systems, processes for success. How do we, once we, well, not even once, I say, are there some fundamental areas we can systemize? We get the basics right in terms of sourcing, for instance, and then I think it's alluding to something that George was talking about there. You can put systems in place, but sometimes to start with, it's just having those conversations to start with. But then ultimately, then systemizing what you do so that you can actually focus on having those conversations with the conversations with the right people, as opposed to the wrong conversations with the wrong people, or right conversations with the wrong people. Financial re-engineering strategies, I think we mentioned earlier, and then things like exit planning, and then exactly how do we, what do we have to do in order to really prepare for an exit and actually executing the exit. I think that very, very broadly, and I know I've missed lots of areas off possibly, and sort of equally important nuances that we should bring out, but in a sort of rough sequence, mindset, sourcing, building rapport, managing the meetings, deal structuring, closing, due diligence, post-deal due diligence or extended, and then some things like systemization of the approach that we take. What do we do when we have a business? What's the things that that's when the hard work really starts, once you've bought the business. Buying, I think Ollie said the same, that's relatively easy parts. Once you've bought the business, that's when the real work really starts. You have to follow through on a lot of the promises or undertakings that you've made in actually acquiring the business. So I would have thought there are chunkers, I thought, Ollie, with some of the sort of subject areas. What we could do is actually send out like a bit of a vote against those and give people an opportunity to add their own thoughts to what's important, what would they be interested in doing. We can then ensure we have a focus on those in forthcoming sessions.
That'd be great. Another thing would be quite useful that I've done in previous groups is if we do a round table and everyone just talks about things that they learned from the Harbour Club, some key pointers that they thought was really interesting. I don't know if we want to look at that next call.
Any lessons learned, yeah?
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful because there's quite a few people on the call that haven't done deals yet or are kind of a bit earlier, and those who are a little more experienced heads just to kind of give some lessons learned, some basic tips, and maybe even areas where mistakes can be easily made, so people can kind of avoid those mistakes.
Yeah, I like that, because I know when I spoke on stage here, we didn't plan it that way, but in that, I can't remember if it was middle day on Saturday, we said to Jeremy, let's talk about how Craig fucked up, sort of thing, and come up with the sort of all the problems. And there's plenty the war stories that you can we all can give you. So and I think great learning comes from that. I'm just making a quick note and takeaways.
Another thing that might be helpful, guys, thinking out loud, is there's a lot of people that are going to be probably JVing on deals. Like I know on larger deals that I've worked on for my boss, how they structure their JV splits, but like maybe a lot of people are talking about JVing on deals. And so how do people kind of approach that from how do you share the investment of time and equity in those type of deals? Because I think some people are probably strong on sourcing. Some people are going to be more operational people running the company. Like how do you kind of split that deal pie? I think that's something that people are going to be wondering. It could be a pertinent topic to maybe approach.
Yeah, there's a few models people have used over the years that, and some that probably even people have experience of actually executing now. We could run through. That's a nice one, yeah.
I don't know how people think about accountability, but the group that George and I are in, I think one of the best things that it gives us a lot, but one of the best things is accountability. That we have a commitment to meet once a week. We work as a group, but we constantly move things forward. So I don't know if we could, or how we would do that on this call. We've got quite a lot of people here, but some kind of accountability, I think, is always a good thing, just to hold everyone true to what they want to do over time period between the calls.
Yeah, so having the like smaller, I suggest maybe it's like having like little smaller accountability groups. I know Texas are looking at that. They're the independent state. They're leading that, and I think I saw that you were going to have one tomorrow, but I think you've rescheduled that for another period forward. I can't remember when that is. So yeah, maybe I don't know whether it's geographical based or whether it's like you have Ollie with George and etc. You've coalesced around a few of you kind of get together and become accountability partners. That also works quite well as well. But it's a really important point. Having someone to help you keep you accountable and driving each other, not necessarily only one person, but driving one another forward and keeping yourselves accountable. So
I think that would work best in like small teams, because if the purpose of this call is to kind of broader exchange lessons learned and tips and tricks and best practices, then it's going to be very hard to keep each other accountable. That model would work in like small focus groups of 3 or 4. Just hard to do on a big scale with 20 people on a call, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, good one. So focus. So the other one we got here is that Jim said about the focusing on the invoice out strategy, and it's invoice out and other sort of invoicing out the assets, and even there's been questions about what do we do if there's cash in the business, other strategies how you can work with that and so on, and obviously keeping yourselves well on the right side of things, of course, in doing that. What else? Jim, yes, good idea. Sorry, Ali, you're saying the same. And JV on second, joint venture discussion. Cool. So I think we've got a few nice ideas there. I also was wondering, I've been having a few people asking about the Value Builder tool. I can either do that now, or I can set up, I don't know what people's wishes would be. It probably needs a little bit longer, to be honest with you, but I could set up a call for those who are interested in having a better understanding, not just about the Value Builder tool, which comes from the product that I license for myself, but everybody else is able to acquire it directly from John Warlow and his Value Builder System Inc. But we've just as a headline, I've negotiated with them negotiated with them a discount rate for us. So should we and other people want to actually utilise the tool, it's open to the harbour clubbers to use and gain that benefit. But I think you can go, obviously. I think there was on the pen drive for the guys who recently went to the Harbour Club in the last one in Heathrow and the last one in Miami. There's a little PDF that I put together that describes a little bit about it, some videos. I can set up some separate sessions to go through that in more detail, but I'm particularly saying it because I think it'll be useful to understand not just about the tool itself, but how I'm leveraging it for helping with closing that gap and give you some ideas about how it could be used to help you. I'm happy to do that, but I think probably be a good idea we schedule that as a session at some point.
Yeah, I think it's a standalone step. The first one of this always gets a bit long. Everyone gets tired at the end of it.
Yeah, the energy.
Just a more focused one would be awesome. And thanks for organising that, Craig.
Yeah, no problem. I can do that. I'll make a note of that, so I don't forget.
So there's some questions about recording it. I don't know if you can see top left corner. Yeah. You have a recording flashing button here. So we'll post all these videos on the app. So if anyone were to miss one of the calls, then you'll be able to catch up and review it at a later date.
Yeah, and I will admit that I recorded it just a little bit late. I think who was speaking first? Was it Eric? You might have been. No, not Eric. I think Alex. Sorry, Alex. You'd spoken, and so I recorded it midway through your introduction. So my apologies. So it cut you off, but it's been recording since then. All right. So any last sort of points? Anybody would like to raise anything? Any questions that you've got? That thinking ahead of what you've got on your, think of what you're going to be working on in the next period, between now and the next call. Anything that you think you would like some guidance on? Any headlines? I'm thinking about things that will actually help you expedite your success, so you don't get stuck. Any nuances? We talked about things that kind of work, don't work, but particularly at the stage most people are at right now.
Yeah, Craig, nothing specific from my side, but thanks so much, guys, for organising. I think it's a valuable exercise to get everyone together once a month, check in, and just kind of opportunity to ask questions and things that maybe people are a bit worried about figuring out by themselves to kind of leverage that group knowledge base,
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm thinking about the structure. Are we happy with the structure? Like maybe the round robin with introductions won't be so important, but going forward, as we get new members coming in, maybe the quick intro there. But then, having maybe asking for questions in advance might help, but obviously you still have the opportunity to submit questions on the fly, and then a particular kick-off with a particular focused area on one particular area, like a keynote split session or a deep dive session into one particular area, and then a clinic type Q&A session might be helpful after that. Okay.
Hey guys.
Yeah, Doug.
I do have one question since you brought it out, Craig. If you got a second.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, at what point in the deal structure, or at what point in the rapport building, are you asking them to produce financials in order to just understand whether what they're saying is legitimate? Is that kind of what your questionnaire is doing? You're asking them to upload their P&L, their cash flow, all of those things as kind of your filter and your sift?
Really depends, Doug, on the source. If I'm having an initial conversation, it's gone, say, through an introducer, probably not. They will have that lot of information anyway. in the information memorandum. If it's a warm introduction, or where I've gone directly, or they've been through a funnel, the questionnaire doesn't necessarily. I used to ask that, but and that was a little bit that's too much to ask to start with.
Sure.
So it limits when you look at the, if you by means go on to the Value Builder questionnaire as an example and run it, have a go at it yourself, have a look, you'll see pretty benign type information on the face of it. We're just asking like revenue, profit levels, some basic things like that in the financials, and the rest is all more about how they're about the business itself and focused around the value drivers. In terms of normally when I'm on the call, I at least have wanted to gather an understanding if they're broadly speaking hitting the criteria they want in terms of revenue, profit, sector, and maybe a little bit about the circumstances of the business. Is the owner looking to sell? Are they, they looking to grow in some way, or they felt they've got to a certain level of, they're slightly stagnated, they've got a glass ceiling. Anything will help me, but even that last bit is not absolutely necessary. As long as it fits broadly the size and scale of the business criteria, and it's the sector, I'll then eventually have a call with them. Depending on the volume of them, we'll put them through some form of either volume of leads we're getting at any one time, put them through the qualifying step. On the call though, the first call for me is I rarely drill into or actually expected to start talking about the financials or going through and questioning them about treatments on the accounts and things like that, or why this, why that, when I'm looking at the balance sheet or the P&L. It's all about rapport, all about building, getting understanding of the business, understanding their problems. I'm solely focused on can I get to a point where I really understand their problem, and then I'll go through a process of agitating that problem a little bit, trying to figure out where their issues are, built on sort of, we talked in the past I think on Miami about the building out a clear vision and understanding, like an avatar of a ideal seller, or not ideal seller, but a seller persona or an avatar. So I'm already kind of equipped to knowing what type of thing to question, or what I'm trying to expect to understand if they have these type of situations. Pull them out, agitate the problem a little bit, so I can get really understand how big a problem it is for them, and then what the potential future, like if Jeremy says like a magic wand, or what the future heaven would be like if they sold the business for the right money. What would it enable them to do? You say you want to retire, but really, do you want to retire? Do you want to just step sideways? What would it look like? What would you do the day after, the week after, the month after, the year after you've sold the business? What will you be doing? And you get that understanding. And so I'm building that rapport, empathy with them, really a hell of a lot with them. So they actually, I want to get it to a point where they are saying, even before I'm getting to sort of towards the end of the call, saying, they are asking me, what can we do next? How can I, it sounds great. What's the next steps? What can we do now? They're not sort of saying, well, I'll think about it. They're actually coming to me for the to follow through. And if I got that, that's it. All I'm doing is closing them at that point. I'm saying, that sounds great. I'm pretty good feel for the situation. Now let's get into I need, if you can let me have your balance sheet, P&L, latest. If you've got a business plan. If I sense a little bit of something through the conversation, probably it may be appropriate. I can get some of the aged creditors, aged debtors. I should be putting in American terms. AR and AP, aged listings, and then also, even if they've got detail, even get to a point, maybe I send over a whole list of information I'd like to request from them. So you have to be careful about how much you're asking from them, so you're not overdoing it and sort of overwhelming them. So it's really a case of talking to them, sensing what you can get, and if they're really after wanting you to do the deal, I go in and just get all this information from them, and then set up a follow-up call with them shortly after to go through it and dig into more details at that point.
I totally agree, Craig. I don't know about you, but it's a kind of a trust thing, isn't it? And the rapport building, the more rapport, the more you can get from them. I don't know about you personally. In our group, the balance sheet, the P&L, we tend to get quite early on. It's quite easy. A lot of the time that sits with the broker themselves, and you have to go through the NDA process, and then they'll give you the balance sheet and the P&Ls. Personally, we're finding actually that the P&L and the balance sheets gives you a rough idea about the business, but we take it to a stage further than that. And once we've got rapport with the owner founder, we'll actually ask them to send us their bank statements for the last year, and we'll literally go through piece by piece and build out a cash flow chart. And it's only then you really understand the business, because a lot of these, the SME market are lifestyle businesses, and there's a lot of flaff in their accounts that gets into the balance sheet, and you really need to sieve out that to see really what is the profit and loss, and you only do that by picking out piece by piece what are the ins and outs of that business. But it's also a good opportunity by going through that with the owner to sort of to deepen that rapport with them. And once it's all laid out in cash flow, that gives you a really clear understanding about what is the profit outside of travel, holidays, and things like that. Flights, to the Bahamas that have got onto the balance sheet. So it's that point that we find you can really sieve out a lot of the certain accounts in the business, right?
Yeah, and don't be surprised that some of the people that was mentioned earlier, even though they're doing how much was it that you said they were doing this deal that you were looking at, and they've not you, Ollie, but someone else on the call. So I forgot who said it. And they very little understanding about financial accounting terms. Don't actually have control, even though they may be doing 4 million in revenue. I think we said they have no idea what a cash flow forecast is. So don't expect that these figures will be there either. Hence why having a strategy of often, which I talk about, this extended due diligence is very powerful, because you can say, look, I know you've got this expectation, you want 4 million or whatever it is, or whatever figure you say what you want for the business. But it's really difficult for me to assess that and see whether or not I can actually sieve a golden thread that will actually support that. How do you come up with that valuation is a really good open question for them. And often we'll find that they don't know, or even the broker may have positioned the asking price based on some metric that he has or some valuation model he has. But all of that is all semantics, it's very opinion, it's all just opinion. And again, go back to things like the value builder tool that helps you step away from that and provide sort of a more objective sort of view on it, but try and close the gap. And I think it'd be useful to have that call to sort of walk you through that. And that's the approach I take when there's a lack of that type of information, or there's a disparity between what different parties are thinking. It actually the figures are telling us is to be able to actually build on that rapport, go into the consultation mode, and actually bring them around to actually showing them, helping them to get to that end goal. So remember we talked about getting, building up the relationship, the rapport, really understanding their problem and figuring out the solution. Be solution solving centric in everything you do. When you actually come to actually have a question about, well, having to give them the painful, statement that their child is ugly and they've had their business for all these years, and they're just nowhere near are they ever going to get to that point right today at the figure they think the business is worth, or it's not going to solve their problem. We have to spend some time in the business, and I think that's when you have a really good chance of going in there and having extended due diligence, putting in place a consult agreement, and figuring out the real detail you have in the business, and then defining the deal structure at that point. That, I think, for me, is a really nice way to extend that period of time, give yourself time to really figure out what you've got, lock yourself in, lock the business into you as an exclusivity, and then you're effectively closing the deal from within and doing a sort of working buyout type of scenario.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Craig, same. Brett said, Craig, same as you did to invite this group. Vote on top of this. Yes, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do the same thing. I'll set up a vote, and we can vote on the topic list and sort of prioritise them as well. Okay,
I've got a question for you, Craig.
Yeah.
What is the picture you've got above you there? It looks like Madonna's breasts.
When I switched it on, I knew one of you, the most depraved of you, and I was betting it would be you. It's actually frogs upside down on like a some sort of hat. But yeah, it looks like Madonna's brush. Yeah.
Good investment.
Exactly. So, guys, anything else? Sure, that's what I'd say too. Frogs. All right, guys. Anything else? I'm keen, obviously, conscious of everybody's time. I want to respect that. We can obviously go on for 10 more minutes, but if there's no other points, so obviously I suggest we can close.
No, it's great to meet you all, guys, and we look forward to seeing you all again on the next call.
Okay, then. Thanks, everybody. Nice speaking to you. Speak soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.